Hello editing students. What I'm going to do for this tutorial is take you through the process of exporting your video. So let's say you finished your timeline, everything's in there, you're finished. Just, double check, make sure there's nothing extra at the end. But it's okay. I mean, if there is some stuff there and you want to cut it off at a certain point, I'll show you how to do that as well. But let's say we have our finished edit, we're all done, and we want to get it out into a self-contained video format that we could upload to, say, YouTube or Vimeo or something like that. The next class that I meet with you, I'm going to go over codecs and bit rates and spatial and temporal compression. It's stuff that's good to know as an editor. I don't want to do it over an online type of class, though. I think it might be a little too boring and it might put you to sleep. So with this stuff, though, at least it's kind of visual. You can see what I'm doing step by step and take notes as well. And up on Sakai, I also posted the notes and step-by-step instructions for some of these things that I'm going over as well. So the first thing I want to do is, make sure my edit is clean and tight and, all done. It's what we call, it's locked, it's finished. We're going to go to File, Export, and Media. So we're going to export the media, and if you can see, I'm on a Mac, so it's Command M for the shortcut, but it'll be Control M for the PC. So I'm just going to export my media. And some of you who've done this before in the past, you've seen this interface. So I just want to go over it a little bit. I'm going to zoom in just so we can take a quick look of what we're looking at here. So let's just look at, by default, it should maybe pop up on the source option up here in the upper left. And if you wanted to, you can change it to the output to see what it would look on the output. You could also, if it's not fitting in the frame, you've got options to change what it looks like there. But for now, I just want to bring you down to the bottom area where you see this playhead down here. This playhead allows you to scrub through your video and check and make sure you've got everything there. If for any reason you had extra stuff toward the end that you didn't want to use, you could just click this little tiny arrow down here and drag that in and create a new out point if you wanted to. You could also press O. So just put your playhead where you'd like it to start, press in, press O, and then you can select what you're actually going to export. So in this case, we want the whole thing, so I'm just going to drag that back to the beginning and keep this at the end. So I've got everything, selected that I want. From there, the next place that I'm going to go is up here. And I'm just going to close these. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to go up here to your export settings. It should be open by default, but if it's not, all you need to do is toggle this little arrow here, and it'll open up your export settings. What I like to do, and what I would say for everybody just kind of starting out and just moving forward with this, I would look at my format option over here. See how it's set up for MPEG 2 Blu-ray. It's if we're going to burn a DVD Blu-ray disc, it'll encode it to an MPEG 2 format or MPEG 2 for standard def. What you guys should go for now is H.264 should just be the option you're going to start to work with now. And then down the road, we could, maybe, mess around, do QuickTimes, do, all different types of options that we want to work with for whatever we have to deliver something to. But stick with H.264 for now. So by choosing H.264, it should default the preset to match your source, the high bitrate. It's up to you if you want to experiment with all these other bit rates, but I'm going to say just choose match source for now. And this should be pretty much where you're going to stick to for these two settings. So make sure those are the same. And when you look at your output name, it should have a .mp4 extension over here. So, and that's typically what we're looking for. That plays on PCs, that'll play on Macs. YouTube likes it, Vimeo likes it, anything that you upload videos to, Facebook, whatever, it's like they all like the MP4. You also want to make sure your export video and export audio are also selected. If you just wanted your video or just wanted your audio, you could deselect those. And then you could take a look down here, your output. This is going to tell you the size of the frame rate, progressive video, the bit rate it's targeting it at. And this is some of the stuff we'll talk about at the next class, but just kind of key things there. The next thing I'd like to take a look at is you've got an effects option here, which is kind of cool. This actually will allow you to apply LUTs, which we call lookup tables. Sometimes they're applied in post and other color correction tools, but you guys have the option in Premiere to export a LUT in Premiere on regular video, Rec 709 video that you guys have recorded, that just clicking this option and from the drop down, choose some of these styles that you would like, maybe to see. So, let's say we want to see blue filterish. We're not going to see anything right away because we don't have the output selected. So let's switch to output. So it'll give us our option to look at some of these filters. So cinematic, desaturation, making it black and white. We've got style back in the day. You've got a bunch of things, 60s. Okay, cool. All right. So anyway, you could play with a lot of that. So I would say, play with these lookup table options here. You also have an option to do an image overlay. And what I like actually is right below that, the name overlay, which is kind of cool. So this, again, you're not going to see it unless you have the output selected up there. But we could, put a file name on there, choose different options, and it just gives us a nice option to play with, putting a name overlay on that. Neil's video would be the prefix and suffix. So now I've got my name up there. You can put where you would like it. I typically don't put my name on it or anything, but you guys could always put like, I don't know, property of or whatever. But the thing that I like actually about this export option, which is kind of nice because a lot of edit systems, really don't have this option sometimes. You've got to put it in as an effect in the timeline, but the option to have timecode overlay, which is kind of nice to put a little window burn in there. So this way, if you're exporting something for a client to look at, or who knows, a producer to look at, they can actually watch the video and choose the in and outs for you, or on a client basis. Nobody could really take the video from you before they've maybe made the final payment or paid you what's due, because it's hard for them. They don't want to like crop this out. What are they going to put a big black box there? It'll just look horrible. So it's just another way for safety thing for you guys. Just watching your backs. Anyway, again, video is our next option here we'd like to check out. We've got our width, 1920 by 1080. Square pixels is something you guys should be looking at. That should have an option. That should pretty much always be there. Some students, for some reason, I see this option choose, or anamorphic sometimes. If they're using standard def video, you might see this DV option here, or the widescreen. Just make sure it's on square pixels. If we were to look at our settings in our timeline, we would see that these are square pixels that we're working with on our timeline. So if that wasn't set, if we change that, if something doesn't match up, you guys may see a black border on the left and right, or on the top or the bottom. Almost looks like the picture is shrunk inside the frame when you export it. And you just kind of go through. I mean, there's a lot of things we could look at here. Our bit rates, again, this is a single pass variable bit rate, and this is a 2-pass variable bit rate. And then this would be a constant bit rate. This would probably be one of your better options. This will be faster. To export this would take a little bit longer. And you can set target bit rates as well, which we'll talk about in another class. But pretty much from there, you're pretty much finished. I mean, if you want to go to your audio and play with different audio settings, but I would say leave it the way it is. It's usually, pretty good the way that this is all set up. From there, just seeing if there's anything else. Yeah, you can send it right to Facebook, right to the Adobe Cloud, FTP it, like Vimeo and YouTube actually have it. So if you have and own this program, you could put your settings in here and it would automatically, connect to them and set them up, which is kind of a nice option that Adobe has. The output name is important for you to just, if you wanted to change the name of your timeline, but more importantly, knowing where your video is going to go. So where you want to put that stuff. So, and you can just save it, and then you have a new path where your video is going to go. Once you're finished, you just need to click export. Now that your file is exported, I think I sent it to the movies. I'll just go to my movies, and there's my video that I exported. And then if I wanted to open it with, I'll force open it. I'll just say QuickTime 7. I like using that. QuickTime 7 will launch, and my video will be in there as a self-contained file. Might be a kind of a big file because we didn't compress it any smaller, but YouTube and Vimeo will compress their files their way. So, for now, I would stick with this as being the way that you guys will export. There's a website called Squared 5. It's got free compression tools for Mac and PC. And you would just download this tool, this application, and in this application, it would open up like this. So it would just open up. It would look like this. And again, it works on Mac and PC. There's another tool called Compressor. Obviously, QuickTime Pro has some compression as well. But this is a nice free tool across the board for PCs and Macs for you to get your files to be a little bit smaller and still look pretty good. And again, remember we're at 1920 by 1080 here. So if I drop that in, here's my video clip that I was originally exporting. What you can do as well is set in and outs in here too. So if you wanted to export just small chunks of it or compress just a section to send to somebody and needed to be a smaller size or something, you have that option in here as well. Again, it's just a standalone window. You just grab your file and drag and drop it in there. And this tool also has a nice option to do batch encoding as well. It's pretty powerful for a free program. But I'm going to go up here where it says File, Export. You got a couple of options here. QuickTime DV. Let's just do MPEG 4. Let's stick to the MP4 format for now. I'll choose the MP4. And then this is our window that we have to work in. So we can compress, still keep it H.264. It'll stay in MPEG 4. We can set the quality level. But here is where you can actually change and say make it to a smaller, smaller frame size, say 864 by 486. So you've got this option to set it there. You also have the option to say, maybe I'll set the quality to 80% instead of 100%. It'll make this file probably half the size, if not a little smaller. Again, you can play with more options here. There are some presets up here as well. Again, we got multi-pass options and things like that. But straightforward, I would just say, leave it at H.264, set the quality around 80 to 85%. And then if you want to make it small, if you don't want it to be high def. But yeah, you could shrink it by 80%. And if I do 864 by 486, or if I want to do the 1280 by 7020, you have these options. If you look at the YouTube settings, they're saying what they're looking for. So once I go through, say make MP4, where do I want to save it? Save it on the desktop. Let me just give it another number just so it's not the same name. I'm also going to show you another tool that I use, QuickTime 7. So you'll have to go on, it works on both PC and Mac, but you're going to have to get an older version, a legacy version of QuickTime Player 7. But with QuickTime Player 7, I could open, say that video, we'll open that reporter video again. And with QuickTime 7, you have the option to register it and make it Pro, which is kind of cool. So it would be most likely in the registration option here up top. It's $20 for the software, but it does a really nice job of compressing, making a really nice small file size and making the video look really good. But again, it's pretty similar. You just go to File, Export, and then you'll have a bunch of encoding settings as well for this. So again, MPEG 4, choose my options. And again, you can see in here, basically it's H.264, and instead of us saying like 80% or something like that, we're actually setting the bit rate right here, the kilobits per second. We can change the image size here. We can also do a custom like we did before, where we did 864 by 486. You can change that as well. Yeah, you get a bunch of different options here, which is pretty cool. But there it's saying what it's going to be, 8,500 kilobits per second, and all that good stuff. Yeah, so I mean, different video formats, but I would say again, stick to the H.264 format. But if anybody wants to play around, QuickTime Pro is another good compression tool for you guys to take the video and squeeze it down, make it a little bit smaller file size, but still have it look pretty good. And again, with QuickTime Pro, you've got these little kind of like arrowy things here that you can set different ins and outs and just select a piece. Also with QuickTime Pro, I think it's similar to maybe what people are used to with Windows Movie Maker, where I can like cut this piece out if I wanted to. So you can actually, edit in this in a way. You can't really see a timeline, but you have the ability to edit. And if I go down to the end here, I'm just going to do edit paste, and I drop that clip from the beginning in a different section. That's the nice thing about QuickTime Pro. It just gives me the ability to cut and paste and maybe move something around or trim a little piece off of the end that I didn't want, or a logo or a graphic that they wanted removed. I could recompress it and just set it out and just lose that end piece. And that's QuickTime Pro.